Hello, welcome to this segment of the Streamline. I'm your host Gerald Lundoyi, and with me in studio today is a face that you're not so familiar with, but you get to know as we analyze current affairs together. Hi Chilombo, welcome to Streamline.
Thank you, my Gerald. Nice to be here. Wonderful to be here. I think I'm looking forward to a great show with you.
Beautiful. We are glad to have you here as well. And of course, we get right into it. We have 3 stories for you on the show, with the first one being
Andrich Bus Services has alleged that UPND has denied the company buses from operating in bus stations since the PF lost power.
And of course, Vice President Mtalina Mango urges local people to buy local products.
And finally, Pandora Papers have been released by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists.
And for more on these stories, catch us after a short break.
Andrich Bus Services has disclosed that the United Party for National Development has denied their buses entry into Intercity since the Patriotic Front lost power. Andrich proprietor Mr. Andrew Lubusha notes that the company vehicles have been denied entry on the basis that the company owner is a Patriotic Front member. Mr. Andrew Lubusha has since called on government to intervene as the company employs 100 employees. Gerald, what's your take on this story?
Well, disappointing really, Chilombo, especially coming from a background where the president just recently denounced cadreism in all basically sectors of government. And it's coming from the very base where most of these cadres were situated, which is the bus terminals and of course markets and so on and so forth. So it's very disappointing coming from such a background. And of course, I would love to think the president emphasized the fact that cadreism should not be condoned. What's more really amusing about this is that recently the president also made allegations that it was actually the PF that were regrouping and going back into these bus stations. But then that is one way of looking at it. We may as well look at it from the point of the cadres, because as you may know, most of these people had no jobs.
Certainly.
Yeah, the only occupation that they had was cadreism. So the fact that they were removed and they're not given any form of alternative source of income makes it very difficult for cadreism to completely end. So I think having that backdrop in mind will give you something concrete as to where this sort of cadreism is coming from, and of course why a lot has to be done to really address this issue.
Right. Just to add on to what you have said, which is a very good point. When you look at the history of Andrich and his operations, Andrich Bus Services, that is owned by Mr. Andrew Lubusha, who is also Chipangali Member of Parliament under the Patriotic Front, is that prior to 2015, there was another company that was operating along the, because Andrich operates along the eastern route, that's Chipata and Lusaka, or Lusaka to Chipata. We had a company that was called Joabi Motorways. What happened is that when the proprietor, and who happens to be the United Party for National Development provincial chairman of Western Province, that Mr. Joabi Mutonga, joined UPND, the Patriotic Front, by then government, banned the operation of Joabi, and that's how Joabi actually died. So for me, I'm thinking it's an aspect of revenge. However, I think like you have put it, I think it's unfortunate, and it's very good that the president came out and actually condemned such kind of behavior. There's no retribution or revenge. I think we are one Zambia, one nation, like Mr. Lubusha said. The 100 employees, the way Joabi felt when it was down due to its the owner, exactly, due to the owner being politically affiliated. I think even Andrich should also be looked into that lens where employees are going to lose their daily income.
But again, Chilombo, that's one way of looking at it, really. I think if indeed UPND cadres are the ones that play here, there is lack of understanding that the political landscape that we have now is different from the political landscape that we had under the PF government. This is not to mean that we did not have cadres before the UPND or before the PF. We had cadres in the MMD government, we had cadres way before even UNIP, we had cadres. But then cadreism increased so rampantly in the PF government that it became a thorn in the flesh. So I think what is important is for the UPND to understand now, if they are the ones that play, I'll keep emphasizing that point, if they are the ones that play, let them understand that the type of environment that President Hakainde Hichilema is trying to create right now is the sort where things are done in the formal way. Say, for example, marketeers are supposed to trade at certain times in the market, or are supposed to pay certain payments. It must not be done through cadres. It has to be done through the channels that are created. You see, so I think that is where most of these cadres are having it wrong. But then again, what we've lacked really, I think, here in Zambia is the true definition of who a cadre is. I think we may bring that into perspective because a lot of people think being a cadre is putting on some brown shoe
and gumboots.
Yes, gumboots and so on and so forth. But I think there's a dignity to that name, really, because we have a lot of cadres. Some cadres are cadres for mental health, which is a problem that we have now. Some cadres are cadres for a lot of different things. So I think there's need to dignify the name cadre, because once everybody thinks cadreism is about doing all the unlawful things around, then maybe we have it wrong as a country, and we need to redefine this term.
Certainly, we need to redefine this term of cadreism. And when you look at it, Gerald, is that interesting, and this is an interesting story, is that we have Elvis Nkandi, who is the current Minister for Sports, and Youth. In 2011, Elvis Nkandi was president for Zanama, and Zanama were terrorizing marketeers. They had this crop of cadres that were terrorizing marketeers. But after the party, that's the MMD government, lost power, and Zanama was kicked out by Natmas, who now took over the running of markets, like the way the UPND government or the UPND cadres want to take over the running of governments. Elvis Nkandi went somewhere, made a life for himself, and came back a reformed.
As a redefined
exactly.
Reform.
So he redefined. So I think cadres, especially both from the PF and from the UPND, should actually look beyond markets. They should look beyond bus stations and actually look at examples like Elvis Nkandi, where you can actually make a life outside terrorizing people and actually extorting people of their hard-earned money.
Unlawfully so, unfortunately.
Certainly. So I think it is very good that the president was assertive and he actually demanded that no party branch or cadreism should be entertained in bus stations and markets, and I think that will go a long way in stopping this scourge. So we thank you very much, Gerald, for that, and I think we move on to our next topic of discussion.
Welcome back. And in our second story, Vice President Madam Mutalina Lomango has emphasized on the need for the people to buy local products. Now, Chilombo, this buy local campaign has been long overdue. It's been on the panel of discussions for time indefinite now. I remember at some point there was an initiative, if not, should be by the PF government back in 2011, I think, when it just came into power. They brought in the local is like a campaign where a lot of Zambian people were encouraged to buy local products. So it's been in discussion really for a long time, and we don't see an end to it anytime soon. Do you think now that there's a new government in power, there's more promising rules or maybe policies that favor the local production companies?
The direction that Gerald, that the UPND government has taken with regards ensuring that there is promotion of local production is encouraging. And by that, we see the creation of the new ministry called the Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprises, headed by Elias Mubanga, who's an entrepreneur. So I think that shows the intention of this government. When you look at previous governments, enterprise, consumer protection, local consumer promotions were actually under the Ministry of Commerce, and it was bloated because Commerce will look at foreign products. They also look at local products. But looking at our country, they'll focus more on the foreign products. Yes, certainly. And that stretched the ministry. But with a standalone ministry in the Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprises, we'll see maybe the encouragement of local production. The problem that has engulfed small and medium enterprises and the production, actually, the increase in the production of local products is capacity. There's no or little capacity that has been built over the years to ensure that local farmers, local producers are enhanced in terms of production. We find that they have smaller machines that they can't compete with South African products. There's little marketing. They have little strategies when it comes to marketing their products. And that has been an impediment when it comes to ensuring that local products are enhanced. Because it's not only about promoting local products, Gerald. It's about promoting quality local products. So with a standalone ministry in the Ministry of Small and Medium Enterprises, I think maybe we'll see the encouragement of local products that are of quality to ensure that we compete even in the region as well as across the world.
Indeed, well put. But then we have one other debate, Chilombo, that comes into play here. I like the fact that you mentioned that the Ministry of Commerce and Trade was stretched thin because of the so many duties they had to do, and of course look out for our local producers as well. But then, are you seeing these measures being brought in, or that will be brought in thereof by the new government being sustained? Because introducing these new policies is one thing, and we saw introduction of so many policies before this. So do you see Zambia having the capacity to sustain whatever little progress we're going to make in this time that we're going to have the UPN in power?
It's possible with political, Gerald. And by this, we need to ensure that we don't have a bloated bureaucracy. You find that just coming up with a small company, you need to go through a lot of
so many processes.
Exactly. So if the government, and we saw it in the speech that was delivered to the 13th National Assembly by the President, Mr. Kane Hichilema, he talked about cutting on unnecessary red tape. And I think if that was to be implemented with the necessary political will, I think we'll be able to see these plans come to fruition. However, I think it's incumbent also on Zambians to ensure that they actually take the step to also present their ideas. The Citizen Economic Empowerment Commission, CEC, is now under the Small and Medium Enterprise. People should actually step in and actually ensure that they apply for these loans, they avail their ideas to government so that they are funded. And I think that would be critical. But lastly, when it comes to CEC, we have seen in past governments or in the previous government where people are complaining to say, no, the terms and conditions in the current is going harsh. And also there's a lot, again, going back to the law of bureaucracy. How best can local entrepreneurs, when it comes to these guys that are producing local products, how best can they be helped with working together with CEC?
I like the fact that you've brought in CEC and it being put under the new ministry. CEC before this was a very independent body. Due to lack of better term, we didn't call it a parastatal. So CEC was to some extent, or maybe to every extent, categorized. There were so many people that would apply to CEC that would not get these loans, and yet to see people that were affiliated to the ruling party then getting those loans, and maybe even huge amounts, unprecedented, you see. So the fact that we now have CEC under the Ministry of Small Scale Enterprises makes it easier for the ministry to run and of course to oversee the activities that small and medium scale enterprises are doing. But then, Chilombo, that's one other argument. We have, on the other hand, a crop or a group of these marketeers or marketers, if you'd like to call it that way, and of course business people, who have very little knowledge on what marketing is about. Ask an average business person now what marketing is. They'll tell you marketing is maybe the promotion of goods and services. You get the thing? It's broad, when it's a broad topic of its own, you see. So I think there is need for our crop, especially this crop of business people that is coming up now, to be enlightened on what business is about. We've had a lot of people practicing hand-to-mouth type of businesses. So that will not sustain the economy. And of course, we're looking at an economy that is already stretched thin. So these are some of the issues that the government may address. I like the fact that Madam Nalumangorada in her speech mentioned or touched on the need for these entrepreneurs or group of business people, be it farmers and so on and so forth, to create cooperatives, because that way you have a smaller unit of people managing themselves. You get, while we have a bigger unit of people, which is at national level, managing the small cooperatives that we have. I think that creates a more transparent system, if you ask me, because we have people that are making contributions to buy land, people making contributions to maybe bigger their shops and so on and so forth. And because it's coming from their own pockets and at local level, that means the government is not spending as much. And if the government is not spending as much, it means they're getting more from the people. And they're only getting enough for them to continue to do their businesses and grow, which was not the case in the PF government. So as we've mentioned, Chilombo, this has been a whole stretched conversation. I think it goes on and on. But all we can say is we truly hope that the new government indeed brings about policies that help small and medium scale enterprises increase their production capacity. And on to our next story.
And finally, International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, ICIJ, has released the Pandora Papers, which have shown how more than 35 world leaders and more than 330 politicians and businessmen have evaded tax by operating offshore accounts in countries such as Panama as well as Cayman Islands. Gerald, what's your take on these revelations by ICIJ?
Well, I think it's a well-known fact by now that a lot of international leaders somewhat involved in illegal activities, especially when it comes to money. Having those figures, though, is frightening, if you ask me. Keeping in mind, of course, that the world has so many problems as it is, and then there's a lack of funds here and there, especially in the African setups, and it's really disappointing, really alarming. But then what's most disappointing to me is that even some African leaders have been named in this particular scandal. And we know for a fact, you and I know, that we are not in a position as Africa, as a continent, to be misusing or misappropriating such amounts of money in the billions, Chilombo. So I think it's really alarming, and it's a huge concern that needs to be addressed. And then the revelation is very timely.
Gerald, more than 35 world leaders have been mentioned in these Pandora Papers. More than 335 politicians and businessmen, including billionaires, have been mentioned in these Pandora Papers. It shows how big this is. And this is not only exclusive to other countries. Even in Zambia, we see tax evasion being a big issue, and ZRA has time and again talked about people not evading tax. How can the new government work on tax evasion?
What may help, Chilombo, is maybe it comes back to the issue of politics and political will. If you have a government which has flexible taxes, taxes that do not punish the people, where you do not have to break a bond for you just to pay taxes, we may see a reduction in some of these cases. I must commend ZRA at this point. I think they've done quite a tremendous job, especially this past fiscal year. ZRA has managed to have a huge surplus of revenue that has been collected in the first quarter of the year alone. So that should tell you that they're doing something right. And I think it comes back to really how engaging most of these institutions are when it comes to educating people about what tax is and how it can be paid. Because some people don't really evade tax, because in their mind tax does not exist. You ask a normal marketeer what tax is, they'll not tell you what it is. All they'll tell you is it's money that we give to what chancellor or stuff like that. You see? So there's serious need for people at basic level, at grassroots level, to be educated on what tax is. And also policies that favor institutions, or rather small businesses, so that they do not have to run away from taxes. But then, Chilombo, that's one way of looking at things. Is there another way in which maybe the government can engage these people in order for them to be educated enough on tax issues, of course, to get them to pay taxes as should be? Certainly,
I think there's another way, and I think this way should be to show the benefits of paying tax. We do not see a situation where people are shown where or how far-reaching paying tax goes. Because if you tell a marketeer to say, if you pay tax, this tax that you're going to pay, it will be revenue for government. If you do not have medicine in hospitals, we are going to use your tax to buy medicine in hospitals to fix that pothole. And I think that will go a long way in showing people to say, I want to participate, exactly, I want to participate in the development of the country by paying tax. So I think tax should be made more attractive, and I think people should see where their tax is going. It's very frustrating to pay tax and then you hear that a lot of money has been stolen through procurement or anything. But I think if
honeybee,
exactly. So if the paying of tax is made attractive by showing people where their tax is used and how it's used and the benefits of paying tax, then I think we'll certainly have a lot of people paying tax.
Most definitely, Chilombo, and I appreciate the way you bring it out. Tax, it must indeed be a more engaging topic, and of course a lot of people must get to know about taxes. This particular story is the last story on our show today, but before we go, here is a look at the stories that we looked at the show. There is normally a jingle here, then we come back.
Unrich Bus Services has disclosed that the United Party for National Development, UPND, has denied their buses entry into Intercity since the Patriotic Front lost power.
And of course, Vice President Madam Mutalo Nadumango calls on the local people to buy more local products.
International Consortium of Investigative Journalists have released the Pandora Papers, in which more than 35 world leaders have been cited to be evading tax.
This has been the Streamline, and I've been your host, Gerald Lundoyi.
My name is Chilombo Chinganda.
And on behalf of our production crew, it's bye-bye till next time.